Everybody thinks early retirement is some kind of cinematic drama. They picture millions sitting in a high-yield account, a massive stack of rental properties that require a full-time staff, or maybe just winning the genetic lottery with rich parents. People spend their entire lives chasing the big score, that once-in-a-lifetime crypto moonshot, or a tech stock they magically timed perfectly. But what if I told you that your entire escape plan doesn't need a portfolio of 20 houses? What if it starts with just one? Not 10, not 20, not some sprawling HGTV empire that turns your hair gray by 45. Just one. And no, this isn't about buying a zip code flex mansion or chasing the next hot neighborhood some influencer mentioned on TikTok. It's about making one intentional, tactical move that quietly snowballs into financial freedom while everyone else is still screaming at their phone screen, debating Bitcoin versus index funds. If you're exhausted by the work until you're 70 blueprint, stay with me. Because while the world is obsessing over side hustles and grind culture, there's a boring little real estate play that has minted more millionaires than almost anything else in history. And the funny part? It's so simple that most people ignore it because they assume complicated equals powerful. It doesn't. My name is Woof, and today I'm showing you how one house can kill the rat race forever. The strategy revolves around owning one carefully chosen property and using it in a way most homeowners never even consider. This isn't about flexing a luxury address to impress people you don't even like. It's not about flipping houses every summer like a reality TV star. And it's definitely not about becoming the landlord of 15 angry tenants who call you at 3 a.m. because a faucet is dripping. It's about understanding how a single property can become a long-term wealth engine. Picture this: you buy one solid middle-class house in your 20s or 30s. Fast forward 15 or 20 years, that same property has quietly built enough mailbox money and equity to cover your basic living costs. Now you're in your 40s or 50s, and work? Work becomes optional. No lottery ticket, no inheritance, just one smart decision made early and left to cook. It sounds dramatic, but it's not. It's just math. And it works for regular people with normal incomes. You don't need a 850 credit score or insider knowledge. You just need to understand two things: leverage and patience. The foundation of this approach starts with something the industry calls house hacking. But we're not stopping at the beginner level. Traditional house hacking usually means buying a duplex, living in one unit, and letting the neighbor pay your mortgage. It's a solid equity play. But you can apply those same principles to a regular single-family home and stretch it much further over time. Here's where most people mess up. They look at real estate purely through the lens of monthly cash flow. They ask, will this make me $300 a month? If the answer is no, they walk away. Look, cash flow matters, but in this strategy, it's not the star of the show. The real magic happens when you combine appreciation, mortgage paydown, strategic improvements, and controlled leverage, all working at the same time. It's a force multiplier. While the average Joe is waiting for his 401k to grow by 7%, your one property is working 4 different jobs simultaneously. Let's talk about appreciation, but not the wishful thinking kind. Strategic appreciation means buying where the growth is inevitable, near expanding job hubs, near new infrastructure, in areas where the supply of land is physically capped. You're stacking the probability in your favor. Now, here's the twist that most people miss. Most people buy a home, live in it for 30 years, and throw a party once it's finally paid off. They think, no more mortgage, I won. But what they've actually done is lock hundreds of thousands of dollars inside a dead asset that isn't producing a dime. It's like stuffing stacks of cash into the drywall and calling it security. Instead of treating equity like a trophy to be stared at, you treat it like fuel. You build it intentionally and then you deploy it. You don't let your money sit idle while you're out there grinding for a paycheck. You make the house grind for you. Step 1. Buy right. This means not buying the fanciest house you can qualify for. Don't make an emotional purchase with granite countertops and a spa tub that drains your bank account. You want strong rental demand. Middle-class neighborhoods are the sweet spot. These are places where professionals want to live but aren't quite ready to buy. You also want value-add potential. I'm not talking about a 6-month renovation nightmare that ruins your marriage. I'm talking about small, tactical upgrades that juice the rent and the value. Better fixtures, smarter layout use. and improved curb appeal. Most importantly, you buy patiently. The difference between overpaying and negotiating a killer deal compounds for decades. Once you own it, you don't just sit back and hope for the best. You optimize it. You manage it like a business asset, not just a place where you crash at night. As the years pass, two things happen at the exact same time. The home value climbs and your loan balance drops. That growing gap between those two numbers, that's your freedom fund. And this is where early retirement actually accelerates. Instead of letting that equity collect dust, you access part of it through a responsible refinance or a HELOC. But here's the golden rule. You don't use that money for a new truck or a trip to Vegas. You use it for income-producing assets. Maybe that's dividend stocks, maybe it's bonds, or maybe it's a small cash cow business. The asset type matters less than the principal. Your house is now funding additional income streams. As those streams grow, something powerful happens. Your passive income starts catching up to your monthly expenses. Eventually, it passes them. That's the definition of financial independence. It's not a giant number in a brokerage statement. It's enough recurring income to live without needing a boss's permission. Let's walk through the math because numbers don't have feelings. Imagine you buy a house at age 30 for $420,000. You put 20% down, so your mortgage sits around $336,000. 10 years later, the house appreciates modestly, let's say 4% annually. Now, that property is worth roughly $620,000. Meanwhile, your mortgage balance has dropped to about $270,000. That's $350,000 in equity. Most people would rush to pay that off completely because it feels grandma approved. But instead, you strategically access $200,000 of that equity and invest it at a conservative 7%. That's roughly $14,000 per year in passive income from money that was previously doing absolutely nothing. 5 years later, you repeat the process. The compounding effect speeds up by 50%. That one decision you made at 30 is now generating a massive chunk of your annual expenses. And the beauty? It adapts to your life. Whether you're renting out rooms in your 20s or choosing a strong school district in your 30s, the framework never changes. Now look, real estate has risks. Markets cool off, interest rates jump, and neighborhoods shift. But owning one well-chosen property gives you massive flexibility. You can adjust, you can pivot, you can deleverage. The guy who overextended himself on 10 properties? He's in trouble when the market turns. You're holding a single high-quality asset. There's also something deeply calming about owning a tangible asset. Even if the stock market vanished tomorrow, people would still need a roof over their heads. Try living inside a brokerage statement when the grid goes down. Over 20 years, this strategy creates staggering results compared to traditional savings alone. Not because it's flashy, but because it uses leverage, appreciation, and time as a triple threat. At the end of the day, this isn't really about real estate, it's about a wealthy mindset. Wealthy people don't let assets sit idle. They don't let equity get trapped in the walls of their home, like a participation trophy. They make every dollar work a double shift. Equity trapped in a house is wasted potential. Equity strategically deployed is freedom. Retiring early isn't about hoarding millions like a dragon on a pile of gold. It's about creating enough reliable, recurring income to fund your lifestyle. It's about having options instead of obligations. It's about freedom instead of dependence. In 2026, I know what you're thinking. Housing is expensive. Rates are higher than they were a few years ago. The entry fee feels tougher than ever, but the core math hasn't changed. If anything, building equity in a higher value asset can create even bigger long-term leverage. You might need more patience. You might need to get creative with your location. But one house can still be enough to kill the 9-to-5 forever. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. They don't exist. Find the right property, execute the protocol, and let time do the heavy lifting. Because sometimes financial freedom doesn't start with a massive portfolio. It starts with one smart decision.